David, how big was that win for you? It's nice to sign off the year and just end that little dodgy run a few days ago against Watford. It sets it up nicely, doesn't it, for 2022?
Yeah, I don't know about dodgy run, Gail, but I think obviously it was a great win, that's for sure. And I take your point though that it was a good win after a couple of games which we hadn't got results in.
Just a check, because that's what we seem to do a lot of. COVID, how are you all? Are you all safe and well? Have you got any sort of numbers? I know you had sort of one.
We don't have any more numbers, but as everybody says, it's something which you can't really say now because you're so worried that it changes every day. Like every other club, we're completely unsure what's going to happen daily. But at the moment, our today's update would be that we're pretty clear.
Okay, and obviously you were one of the sides that played twice in 48 hours. I mean, kind of Christmas week, most of us can't put our trainers on twice in 48 hours. You no doubt heard what Thomas Tuchel said yesterday. He was pretty cross, pretty upset. Do you feel we're at a bit of a tipping point? It doesn't seem like there are that many people listening, but is it going to get worse? What can you see happening? And do you must feel for him as best you can as a rival?
I know, I don't know a massive squad. what I would say is I do think that the amount of fixtures, especially if you're a successful club, the amount of fixtures you have to play is really tough. Look, we've always played Christmas fixtures in this country. I've been a player, I've been a manager, we've always had it, so we know exactly what we're getting here. And when you come to this country, it's very much part of it. But I think this Christmas period, I think we've had 3 games instead of the normal 2 games around this period. And I think that's added to a feeling of, wait a minute here, this isn't so good. There's just too many games. But again, I think that it's the clubs who have probably had European football, had good success in the cup competition already. And also knowing that there's another cup competition just round the corner as well. So I feel that there's probably a lot of the clubs feeling and the managers feeling that their players are getting worked too hard.
I mean, do you look at your players and think, gosh, they really do need a rest?
Yeah, we do. Yeah, our players have had a busy schedule, but our schedule is that we play games, so we have to go along with it. I don't like things like unfortunately I'm not in the Carabao Cup semi-final, but I can't understand why there's 2 leg semi-finals. Things like that. We're in a period where players are feeling neglected and not looked after because the authorities who run the game are giving them more games, less time, making it much tougher. But
it is.
I'm not going to change it, that's for sure.
Yeah. It was 2 years since you took over, I think yesterday, was it? And when you arrived, what were you, 17th, the point off the drop, and you go play Palace on the 1st of 2022, and you got Champions League possibly in your sight. As you sort of sit here now, 2 years on, what's the thing that you're most proud of in terms of the way that you've turned this club around?
I think the thing that makes me most happiest is that I think there's signs of good shoots of recovery at West Ham United Football Club. I think people are talking about the football club more than maybe they've done in past. And that's mainly down to the players because of the young players, the players we've brought in. We've got an England player at the moment who's doing really well. We have more international players than we've probably had, certainly in the times I've been here at West Ham. So I think all those things I'm pleased about. And, the other thing is really to say is I think we've got a West Ham support now that's enjoying watching the team. And probably for me, that gives me a lot of pride because it means that you're doing something right. But the praise would always go to the players for the way they've performed in the last couple of years.
And one of those players you mentioned, which is 150 Premier League games at the age of 22, pretty extraordinary, isn't it, really? You've seen him develop over the last 2 years. If he plays, he'll reach that milestone against Palace. And you've seen a fair few in your time. What do you like most about him? And he's already on his way to being a bit of a Premier League legend, isn't he?
Well, I want to keep driving him. I want Declan to realise that I want him to keep stepping up. I think he stepped up again. I think after the Euros, if you look, I think all the players who played in the Euros, I think Declan Rice is one of the ones who stood out since after the Euros. His performances, he's helped West Ham certainly improve. He's helped us as a team and as a club. But hopefully we've helped him as well. Hopefully we've given him a chance to lead the team. He's taken on a lot of responsibility from Mark Noble at the moment as well. But overall, I think Declan's all-round play has improved greatly, and I think he's shown a real level of consistency as well. I think his standards in the main have been very high this season.
Thanks, Gavin. We'll go to Andy at the opening.
Hiya, David. Just on your 2 years, I just wonder, what have you learned from your 2 years at West Ham? Obviously, you come with so much experience in the game, but has there been anything extra that you've learned in those 2 years?
I'm learning all the time. I'm trying to get better at what I do. I want to try and change at times the way I play. I want to try and improve the style. But ultimately, the big thing you want to do is win, and I want to try and win as many games. I think these 2 years has probably been as good a record as maybe I've had at different times. I really do. I think that we've been very good. Our wins ratio in the main. But I think what I felt as if I could bring to West Ham was an idea of how you build a football club and how you grow it. I'm only just right at the start of that journey, but we've started really well, and I hope now that we can try and get another layer. Doesn't always come right away, we don't always move on, but I think for us to try and remain consistent like we did last year, finishing near the top, well, certainly the top half of the league, I think would be another step in the right direction. But other things I want to grow, I want us to have a better youth team. I want us to make sure that we do much more better things around the training ground, and we prepare everything as correctly as we can. So I think there's a lot of things we can do to keep moving that along.
And certainly from a first team perspective this season, I think it's now 12 points from losing positions this season. As a manager, that must be one of the most pleasing things, mustn't it? To kind of see that fight, that spirit in your team week in, week out.
Yeah, we should have never been in a losing position in the first place. That's the way I look at it. I don't want us to be losing. So, but obviously, if you are, you want your team to show a bit of character. And I think for long parts, even last season as well, we showed great character. The players in the main have really pushed and adapted. And even recently, when maybe it's not been, maybe not quite reached their heights, the players have still continued to show that character and a resilience in whatever game they're played in.
It's been a great year, I think you said, after the Watford result the other night. Have you set the team a minimum target with us now halfway through the season or not? We
did set a target, but I set a challenge that we lost out in the Champions League by 2 points. Could we find a way of getting those 2 extra points? So that was the challenge. So it wasn't really a target, but we keep challenging and I want to try and push the players. I don't really want to accept anything too easily, but also I have to understand that I can't let the expectations get too high while we're still trying to grow, and there's going to be blips along the way, and I have to try and make sure that I'm ready for them and how we deal with it.
I know you spoke at length about Jared Bowen the other night. So obviously, he seems to be improving every single game. I just wonder what you would say is the key difference with him this season. Is it that extra bit of fitness, or is it something else?
I don't think it's solely down to fitness. I think it's more down to probably having time to adapt to the Premier League. I keep saying a lot of the players need time getting used to it, and I think Jared's got used to it. I thought he did come back in a really good condition this summer. I thought it was probably the best I'd seen him. And of all the players, he was probably the player who, if you want to say hit the ground running more than anybody, was probably Jared. He's had a little bit of dip at different times in these months, but he's certainly showed a level of consistency enough to keep getting his assists and goals, which has been really important.
Thanks, Andy. Moose?
Thanks, Ben. Hi, David. Happy New Year.
How you doing? I'm good, thank you, yeah.
Players and teams have always played this amount of games over Christmas. And it just seems that this year there seems to be even more moaning about how many games there are. And yet the games are there for the fans, the people who maybe can't get to a game any other times of the year, over Christmas, New Year off. Do you think that it's fair, the amount of complaining that some of your compatriots have done?
Look, I can't speak for anybody else but myself. I've worked and lived in this country. I've also had a chance to work in Spain and see how they do in Spain as well. But in this country, we play games over the Christmas period. I do think there's been one extra game put in this year. I might be wrong in saying that, but I think there's been one extra game put in over the Christmas period. We had a quarter-final of a Carabao Cup game put in a few days before the Christmas period. So I do understand why the teams who have been successful in cup competitions have got a level of complaint. There's very, very few weekends a few weeks, I should say, where you get any spare time at all. So I do understand it, but I'm also come from a country where we play the games, and I wouldn't say I'm used to it, but I'm a bit more hardened than maybe some others who've not been here as often or as long.
I mean, we're seeing a lot of games being called off now, and it's not just COVID; it's COVID injuries.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that you managed to play on. Your team's battled on. You played Spurs, then you played Southampton, then you played Watford. Now you're going to play Palace. In a way, are you happy to get these games out of the way and done and dusted now, or do you think the integrity of the league, because some teams, we all know that a team this week suffered a couple of injuries in a game, and then the next game is called off?
Well, I think if you've got half a dozen COVID and then you end up with half a dozen injuries, it probably rules you out of playing a game. Most clubs we've got 5 or 6 injuries, so we're really feeling it from injury point of view. And I don't agree that injuries should play its part with it. But if you hardly have enough to field which is seen as to be a half decent team, then is it right? But I actually, a lot of it I don't agree with, but it's very difficult, very hard to work out because of the way the Premier League have done it. I've got no idea at the moment what would constitute a game getting called off or not. And I know you've seen the rules, and they've set out that, but I don't believe that those rules have been absolutely adhered to from the first game they called off to where they are now.
Finally, a couple on the pitch. This will be the last ever New Year's Day fixture, which could involve Mark Noble. We're moving into the last few months of him as a player at the club. Does that feel weird? And what are you going to miss about not having him around?
I think Mark will be around. I don't think he'll be too far away. I think we'd like to keep Mark in some capacity around the place because of the years he's been here. But sometimes when you finish playing, you probably want a bit of time away. You just want a bit of time with the family. You might want to do some things that you've not been able to do while you've been training every day and been working. But look, the other day he played really well. He's stiff the last 2 days, which you can expect. But he's done a great job, and he played. There's no doubt about his football. There's no doubt about his ability. He's sort of tactical now, so it's just age is catching up a little bit and on his legs and physically. But otherwise, if it wasn't for that, he could continue playing. So he's been a really good player for this club. You'll know that more than me. But and not only that, I think he's a great ambassador for West Ham as well.
And finally, the first team going to 2022, very well placed to at least do what they did last year, if not better. The under-23s, top of their Premier League group as well, table as well, I think. Has this club ever been in as good a position for the last, 10 or 15 years as it is right now under your stewardship?
Well, again, it's probably good West Ham supporters, and I was going to say old West Ham supporters might be the ones who would give you that answer better than me. But I think we've got a really good team here. I really do. I think we've got some really exciting players, and I have to try and build on it. I have to try and improve it because, if you stand still, we'll fall back. We have to keep moving on, and I think we've moved on in the opening part of this season. I think we've stepped up again, and I need to now find a way to try and get on to another step of the ladder if we can, with the team, with the club. We want West Ham to grow as well. We want to have a new, young West Ham support. It's great the amount of supporters we're having at the stadium at the moment. And we want to keep building what we're doing.
Thanks, Moyes. Cameras off, please. Jack.